Hi everyone, it is Friday, July the 15th, and we've made it to the end of the second week. Congratulations. You guys have been doing a really good job in the course. Again, I'm going to reiterate, I'm a convert to this process. I really enjoy your posts, your discussions, your sharing of resources, all the feedback you're giving to each other, doing some of the research and then sharing it with others. I think it's phenomenal, and I just want to take a few minutes here and try to put some things together based on some of the things you guys used in your discussions. And so this is going to be a two-part video again, because there's a lot. This is the third time I'm recording today. It's one of those days because I have so much to say that my videos are going too long. So I'm going to try to really streamline this. So first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing your stories in your assignment, your life's direction. I think that was beautiful. You guys were very open and honest and sharing some really difficult moments that you have encountered in your lives, and rooting it in Sarah and Abraham's experience, which I think is really amazing. What a great experience, I think, for you guys to realize that, first of all, we're not that different. 4,000 years ago, people were still going through some really difficult times, and we all kind of rely on the same thing. You know, sometimes you have to take a leap of faith, and that's what their story was about, and a lot of your stories were the same, about being uprooted or taking a leap of faith, or having that miracle of starting a family. I hope you're starting to see your connection in terms of scripture. I just want to share another idea about scripture that I forgot the other day. You know, I talked about it being a love story or a weapon, depending, you know, which way we use scripture. But I also see scripture as our owner's manual, really. God created us as human beings, you know, and one of the unique designs about the human creation is that we get to think, and we were designed with the gift of free will. Now, like every other gift, there are challenges that go with it, you know, and the challenge of free will is that we make mistakes. And that's where it's going to take us into our next module of morality and ethics, right? So the church has a lot to say about morality and ethics. We may not agree 100% with what the church is teaching, but I'm going to tell you, and hopefully I'll help you kind of see through a lot of their teachings, that it does make a lot of sense. It's just up to us to kind of figure out, you know, how do we embrace this? How do we bring this into our lives so we have a healthier, happier life? And so, you know, this owner's manual has been created over time, and it is designed to help us in life's, you know, difficult moments, happy moments. It's all in there. A little complicated, you know, we need help sometimes to interpret. Just like putting together IKEA furniture. I'm going to use that example because the other day I was putting together IKEA furniture, and I hate putting together IKEA furniture. And, you know, even though it's got an owner's manual, it's got everything laid out, it's not always easy, you know, and I make mistakes, which I did again this time. Had to take it apart, put it back together, go back to the manual. And that's kind of how life is too, you know. We make mistakes, we fall apart, we got to come back together, and we can refer to this, and it's timeless, right? And a lot of you guys really enjoyed Noel Cooper's resource, his book. He's a great teacher, great information. I hope you guys keep this as part of your theological library. And to kind of reiterate, you know, some of the stuff we talked about yesterday, this is how scripture grows, you know. We can't add to scripture, but we add to our knowledge, you know, and those who came before Noel Cooper, like Aquinas, Augustine, so many theologians, you know, and we could add Richard Rohr and Father Rollheiser and Joan Chittister and all these writers, like huge library that surrounds our scripture and that helps us understand and unpack these sacred teachings. And our owner's manual, you know, is just really huge. So I hope this becomes part of your resources. This becomes part of your theological library. As Catholic educators, we should have these resources on hand. I know more and more we're you know, we've got stuff online, and less we're having books, but sometimes it's great to have a few good books on your bookshelf and for you to refer to. Okay, I'm kind of old school here, but anyways. A couple other things that I wrote down that I want to talk about. Oh, no one posted anything about your sacrifice for Catholic education in 2016. I haven't forgotten, and I'm not going to let that go. I hope someone posts or starts the process on the lounge, but at some point near the end of the course, I will do a little video discussion about what I think some of the sacrifices are for 2016, or possible sacrifices for 2016. So also, there's, some of you guys in your discussions were talking about, not knowing all the answers, not feeling confident about knowing scripture and some of the answers to faith. And don't worry about that. Even myself as an instructor, I don't know all the answers. I have a master's, but I always start off my classes or my courses, and I always say, I don't know all the answers. But if you got a question I can't answer, I'll do the research. I learn from it, and then I'll bring it to the class, and then I'll unpack it with the class as well. So hopefully you'll do that with your kids as well. Learn with them. Show them that you're on a faith journey as well. And I think that's really great for your kids to see that you are growing in faith, and you're going to grow in faith with them. Okay? So that's really important. And another thing I wanted to point out too, just in terms of sharing faith with your kids and teaching your kids about faith as well, we really need to find a middle road. I always caution people who want to teach religion or who want to become a chaplain, and I always say we really need to be rooted in our own theology, in our own way we present to our students, that we balance the different sides of faith. There's always a conservative side, there's always a liberal side. And I think it's really dangerous if we are too conservative or just too liberal, and we present that to our kids and we don't give them a full picture about what it means to be a person of faith. We got to find that middle road, a little bit conservative, a little bit liberal, and also present, church teachings. That's what we're paid to do. We have to teach what the church teaches, but also present in a way that allows kids to enter into church teachings and find their own way, and to understand what their own faith journey is about and how God is defined for them, and that's why I said the whole gender thing, he, she, we cannot define God for kids. We help them get there. We give them the tools, right? But we should never should anyone into faith. That they should believe this only, or only act this way. They should, that's not how we do it. Okay, there has to be, rooted in the church teachings, but also help kids define their own identity as being part of this Catholic Church, and to help them develop their own understanding of how God plays a part in their lives without it being biased, with one way or the other, And that's why it's very interesting, I mentioned Pope Francis is the prophet for today, and I think, Pope Francis is the closest thing we have to Jesus, in terms of the experience of who Jesus was. One of the things I'm going to talk about in a moment, because some of you guys talked about Jesus being a rebel, how he wasn't this peaceful, choirs of angels singing around him. Like, he really ruffled the feathers of people. He really upset people in his time, to the point they killed him. Right? And so, when we're talking about liberal and conservative here in 2016, and who Pope Francis is, he's our prophetic voice, but there's a lot of people that are resisting his voice within the Catholic Church. I think he's more embraced by the world sometimes than within the church, because there's a lot of conservative members of our church that are strongly conservative and don't relate to how Pope Francis is bringing the church into this time in history and what's needed, and some of the revisions that I think are coming, based on his theology and his way of approaching the church, and the changes he's making and the things he's saying, the way he's embracing the necessary elements of society that the church in the past have not. People are angry, and there's a lot of dissenters out there in terms of embracing Pope Francis and what he has to teach us today. So, and then Jesus was the same at his time, right? People took real offense to a lot of things he did and said, right? Called himself the Son of God. Really? That was huge. And just, in terms of the things he did, the decisions he made, Judaic law was pretty strong back then, the Ten Commandments, like that, it's still part of our faith tradition, but it was, you upheld these 10 commandments. And the Sabbath, today's gospel is perfect. I'm going to do this in my second post, is perfect for linking these two modules together, because it does talk about the Sabbath, how Jesus violates the Sabbath, right? And these are the things he's doing. He's doing things on the Sabbath, but you do nothing on the Sabbath as a Jew, right? Like that was how it went. Even today, in this time in history, those who are part of the Orthodox Jewish sect observe the same sort of strict Sabbath rules. Sabbath is Saturday for Jews. It starts sunset on Friday to sunset on Saturday. Once it starts, you don't do anything. You stop work. You don't even turn on a stove, right? So for Jesus to be doing things on the Sabbath was really a violation, and they're just so confused by him. He's calling himself the Son of God, yet he's breaking Judaic laws, right? Just remember, Jesus was a Jew. He did everything that was part of Judaic tradition, but he was looking at these, the way they were living and saying, it's not really working 100%. And that's why we get the Beatitudes in Matthew's Gospel. And that's sort of our link between Old and New Testament and morality. We're going into the Beatitudes. How are we living? How are we loving? For me, and this is what he's saying, like for me to pass by someone who's sick or dying and not do anything because it's the Sabbath it's wrong. It's not what God is about, right? And that story of the Good Samaritan, if I had time to unpack it, it really is phenomenal in what he was trying to teach, right? It wasn't that, the priest and the Levite were bad people. It's just that they were going to do God's work. That's why they wouldn't touch the guy in the ditch. Because if he was dead and they touched him, they would violate their ritual purity. That means they couldn't go to the temple and do their temple duties because the violation, so they passed this guy by. And so this Samaritan who is, the Samaritans and Jews were at odds with each other. They were neighbors. And, there's my time, so I'm going to have to wrap this up. But they didn't see eye to eye. So for a Samaritan to stop and help a Jew, that was huge. He was making a point there, So, we got to be careful in terms of at what point do upholding these laws, is it hurting someone or helping someone? It hurt the poor guy in the ditch because they were going to do God's work and they missed God's work in the ditch. And that's what Jesus was trying to point out. So in his rebel nature, he was really trying to show people what the true essence of God is. And we've got these laws, but we've got to use these laws in a way that's going to help people and help us love people and help us heal people. So I'm going to wrap up this section now. I'm going to come back and finish up some of the points I had here, and then finish up with today's gospel and kind of bring it all together, okay?